Yeah, I mean, it's another step towards rebuilding relations. It's announced after this that Li Qiang, the Premier of China, is going to visit later in the year, so that'll be another step forward. It looks like all the tariffs on wine, which were substantial, are going to be lifted, at least as an interim measure by the end of this month. So yeah, there's definitely been progress made.
What about other tariffs and easing restrictions on goods, other goods going into China after these talks?
Yeah, I mean, beef and lobster are the two main ones that are still waiting to be cleared. It's tricky because there's a substantial domestic beef market in China, which will be lobbying against this being lifted. And lobster, apart from a few rich businessmen in Shanghai, there's no lobster lobby, so to speak.
Well, how important was it for detained writer Yang Hengjun that Foreign Minister Penny Wong raised this issue of Australians being held in China with the Foreign Minister? Will it make any difference to Mr Yang's case?
Look, I mean, it's great that she used the language that she did, that she, expressed the shock of Australians at his death penalty sentence. But he is a very different case to Cheng Lei. He's a former state security agent. China views him essentially as a traitor of sorts, and I think it's unlikely he'll be released.
Now, controversially, Wang Yi will also be meeting with former Labor Prime Minister Paul Keating, who's been an outspoken critic of the AUKUS deal. What do you think will come of that?
Look, it's a very curious one because Wang Yi does meet with former leaders. Very pointedly, China's former leaders aren't allowed to meet with anyone, so it's very different treatment to. Penny Wong could never meet Hu Jintao, for example. So it's a curious one. Normally, Wang Yi meets these leaders in Beijing, so this is quite an exceptional circumstance. And, I assume it will be held in the Chinese consulate. I assume it will be well recorded, shall we say. It's you'd want to be a fly on the wall to know what was being discussed. But if he's true to his colours, I mean, he may take them on matters such as China's economic reform, which is pretty well stalled. He may have some pointed things to say to them rather than just the cosy stuff we get in public.
Well, speaking of Wang Yi and his role as Foreign Minister as well, it might be the last high-level visit we'll get from him as Foreign Minister.
Yeah, no, it looks like he is finally going to be able to step back, having stepped down already as Foreign Minister, and after a few months being thrown back in the job, it looks like there is a successor being groomed. So it's likely that the next visit will be by a chap called Liu Jianqiao, who's very much been shadowing him for some time. And that will mark a real change of tone. He's quite a different character to Wang Yi, who, to be blunt, is a very grumpy sort of fellow.
How might that affect relations with Canberra, do you think?
Look, it should, I think, overall improve relations. His English is excellent. He doesn't need talking points to speak with people. And he's generally very personable. But he's also quite a complicated character. In addition to being kind of a career diplomat, he's also spent time as an anti-corruption investigator and been involved in this operation called Operation Fox Hunt, which essentially targets corrupt Chinese officials overseas. So that complicates his backstory, shall we say.
Meanwhile, Graeme, in Hong Kong, a new national security bill known as Article 23 has been passed. What do you make of the whole process? It all happened relatively quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is a record speed. It took 11 days from it being introduced to it being passed, which is a record for Hong Kong's legislature. Admittedly, they've been passing things pretty quickly for the last few years since Beijing sort of asserted itself. Article 23 has been around for a long time. It actually led to the demise of a chief executive back in 2003. Hong Kong's first chief executive, Tung Chee-hwa, triggered protests by trying to introduce this back in 2003 when Hong Kong certainly wasn't ready for it. But it's a real raft of measures. There's 39 new crimes, some of them quite bizarre, and a whole bunch of other measures. To give one example, previously you could be held for 48 hours without charge. Now you can be held for 16 days. So that just gives you a taste of where this legislation is pushing Hong Kong.
And what are rights activists saying about these new measures when they come into effect? What's going to happen?
Well, yeah, it's very concerning because there's also an extraterritorial dimension to them. So they apply beyond Hong Kong's borders. They apply to people in Australia. And some of the new things that have been introduced, you can get 10 years for inciting hatred against the leadership of the Communist Party. I mean, I could do that accidentally right now, by making a joke about Xi Jinping. I'll try not to do it. It's so vague and sweeping that it really, does have a chilling effect.
Can understand why there's a lot of talk about this at the moment. Dr. Graeme Smith, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate your analysis.
Lovely. Thank you.